Hey, everybody, welcome to this week's Fateless podcast episode. Going to be a fun one, welcoming some epic new members to the team. Joining me is going to be Sham, our ninth Dan to join the roster, Damon, and Joel. So, Sham, I'll kind of let you kick things off and get things rolling here with the intros.
Yeah, man, it's an absolute pleasure to have you guys on board, and we just thought it would be super fun to just talk about what your career, what you guys have been up to, and then talk about some of the things you're going to be doing over at Fateless. So I don't know, I'll just kick it over to Dan Borth and unless you start there,
Oh, I get to be the
you
first
get to
guy.
kick us off. That's right.
Ah, okay. I'll do a quick intro. Sure. My name's Dan Borth. I'm the what am I? The chief creative director, officer, whatever that is over here at Fateless now. I've been here for 4 weeks, and it's been great. Getting to learn about the game and learn about the team and work with everybody. It's been an absolute pleasure. You guys are really sharp, really cool, and there's a lot of really fun stuff happening with the game and happening at the studio. So it's a breath of fresh air considering how things are going in the game industry out there. My own personal experience, I started a very long time ago, almost 30 years, which getting up there. As a character artist, I'm an artist by trade. I sculpt, I paint, I do pretty much everything. As a character artist, I worked for Microsoft and Sony and Nintendo. I moved to Austin, Texas in 1999, where I worked on the amazingly powerful GameCube. And
Yes, let's
we
go.
did an RPG for retro. I worked at Sony Online for Star Wars Galaxies for about 6 years. That was a great job. That's where I met Damon, met some other people that we continue to try to work together no matter where we're at, which, Damon and Joel are those types of people. Um, and then shortly after the stint at Sony, I started a company called Red Fly Studio. We immediately got funded, which, I being in the industry for almost 30 years just does not happen. And we got funded for a game called Mushroom Men. And it was a fantastic game, fantastic idea. It afforded us the ability to build a studio. Again, we ended up hiring people that we had worked with at Sony, and Damon was also a part of that. And eventually Joel, and we would get projects like Ghostbusters, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Thor. We worked on, yeah, we did 2 games for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And then we were the group that George Lucas handpicked to do the Darth Maul title, which was, our first really big AAA title that we were really, really excited about, which, just has its own fun issues.
Lore, yeah,
Yeah.
lore, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
thinking about that is still exciting and disappointing.
I know. Yeah. Yeah. And then, right when we were at the cusp of kind of creating that game, Lucas sold, to Disney, and Red Fly's AAA dreams were kind of dashed. And
I still want to see that game, man. I was poking around. It looks awesome.
it was
Yeah, what
it
we
was
had looked cool.
it was cool. It was violent. It was an M-rated title. We had a reverse fear mechanic going. I mean, it was rad. And LucasArts treated us great. There were a lot. We got to meet Lucas. Like, I met him twice. There were people at LucasArts that would,
That's a story you should tell a little bit later in
oh
the
my
podcast.
goodness. I would happy to hopefully tell it at some point, but
Yeah,
we would be in the halls and eating with these guys on the production team, and they would be like, "You guys are such dicks," and it's like, what happened? And they're like, "We've never even met George Lucas," and like, we came in and just met him twice in a matter of a couple of weeks, and our meeting with him and everything. It was pretty amazing.
yeah, you got to tell that story, but you got to save some juicy bits for a little bit later.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, we could talk about it at some point, but so Red Fly, it ended up shipping about, gosh, 13 games. I ended up burying it in 2019. You know, I pour a Colt 45 on the curb for it every year. And
Why a Colt 45? It's just not a good beer. Man.
That's what you do.
What you do. Come on.
What you do, man. Come on. And so then I started
Scotch
another
whiskey.
company called Marching Cube with the core Red Flight team. And we got purchased by Keyword Studios. I ran a Austin branch for them for about a couple years. That was a great job. They're great studio, good people there. Some of the people that I met at Keywords went and started a company called Arctic 7. I went over to that company and we worked on a game that I'd come up with called Dawn of Fire that got funded. And we did all that, and you know, funding for that game ran out, and things didn't work out too great. But then, you know, shortly afterwards, we started talking. Met through Jerry O'Flaherty, who we both, you know, think is just an absolute stud star type of person. And yeah, and then this whole thing kind of escalated pretty quickly.
We were like, how do we get you? When can you can start tomorrow? Are we good?
Right, yeah.
Are we ready?
We literally talked about a job, and then I think I started the next day or something. It was crazy. The next over a weekend. And then obviously, like anything that I ever get involved in is like, hey, you gotta hire Joel Manners like right now, because I can't do anything without that guy.
Well, I see why, because
Yeah,
that's
right.
quite the resume. You know what it reminds me of? There's a clip of a professional golf tournament, and they're introducing Tiger Woods. He's about to tee off, and they're like, and next up on the tee, Tiger Woods, champion of the 1997 Masters, 1999 PGA, 2000 U.S. Open. And after like 3 minutes, another golfer's like, okay, we get it. Like,
Okay, it's Tiger Woods. Can you...
Right.
That's how I felt listening to your resume. I was like, okay, geez, like, all right.
Well, and that's you know, just to be frank, that's what I was hearing. I was like, oh shit, okay, we gotta get Dan, and then you're telling me like, hey, you've got a crew that you like to, you know, you like to roll with, and these are the right people, and they have you know, amazing skills. So let's go to Joel. You kicked it off with Joel. What do we got?
Yeah, that was a good segue, guys.
Yeah.
It even worked. Not like we didn't practice that at all.
I didn't practice it at all.
5 or 6 times, no problem.
I mean, we'll get it down eventually. Yeah. So hi, I'm Joel Manners. So I started here the same day as Dan, so 4 weeks ago, as executive producer. With my background is in writing and design, so they're going to figure out one day I'm not a producer. I just maybe hope not soon. No, I've done a lot of production also. Like Dan, I've been around for a couple of decades in games. I started as QA at Origin Systems, getting to work on Ultima and Wing Commander and stuff like that, which was super fun. My first gig as a lead designer was on Privateer, which is still one of my favorite games to think about making. We were kind of almost a skunk works team, right? In the back corner, with the big Ultima teams and the big Wing Commander teams out front, and no one really knew what we were doing. And so we just kind of were quiet and made a game in the background. Then we've got, after Origin, I ran a studio for a couple of years in Austin. And then after that, took a tour of the big boys. So I worked at EA, I worked at Sony Online, I worked at Microsoft for like 6 years at Microsoft, which in retrospect is unbelievable. Worked for Disney as well, so got to work on a whole bunch of incredibly cool IP, right? So that was kind of like a conveyor belt of, oh shit, I get to work on Turok. Oh shit, I get to work on NBA. I get to work on all kinds of stuff, right? Need for Speed. That was fantastic. Need for Speed was amazing, except for the fact that there was such a competition for the cars being parked in the parking lot, right? Like everyone on that team drove like the most ridiculous Porsches and BMWs and stuff like that.
If you were gonna Need for Speed, I mean, you're not gonna show up in your Toyota Corolla or whatever
I
it is.
get it, but like the pressure was immense, right? Just immense. You drive
Well,
up,
Joel, when Joel says he worked somewhere, I mean, he ran the EverQuest team. That's a little different, like.
Yeah,
It's
EverQuest was a lot different from Need for Speed. I'll tell you that. So, like as a gamer, like I love RPGs. I like the MMOs took way too much of my life as a gamer, right? So, getting to work on EverQuest and EverQuest 2 was huge. Moved down to San Diego for that and joined those teams, and then it was sort of like, oh my gosh, like this is where I poured out hundreds of hours of my life, and I now get to work on it.
yeah.
Right? So that was
me too.
yeah, exactly.
So much of my life, and I mean, you mentioned Star Wars Galaxies, you mentioned EverQuest, you mentioned Need for Speed, Turok. These are all games that I'm like, yeah, I played a inordinate amount of these games.
yeah, you and me both. A really good friend of mine from Sony Online, he was the lead designer on EverQuest. He met his wife through EverQuest, so he's one of those stories, right? That they would raid together.
Did they get married in the game?
First they got married for real, and then they did, but they bought
they did a double. Okay, nice.
Of course, why not? Why wouldn't you?
Of course, right? So and very happily married to this day. So it was one of those sort of like getting into that community was really, really cool. One of the highlights of what I did of my career was getting to work with those guys. Then after that, came back to Austin and joined Redfly. At the time we were making a huge Darth Maul game, and it was going to be a AAA title and everything like that. And over time, it became an indie studio, right? Which previously I'd worked for the big boys, but coming to work for an indie studio was like a huge eye opener for me. That it's not necessarily all about which IP you get to work on. EA was a heck of an environment to work in, but it's very, very different priorities there. And getting to join a team full of folks that were like super passionate about an idea that they hatched in the break room the other day was like, I was like, oh no, I'm home.
There's something special about it, right?
These
Smaller teams. It really
right?
is.
Yeah, no, these are my people. So it's been really cool. And yeah, I can't remember. Are we at the 14 years, Dan? I think 14 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Of working together and through all the stuff that Dan was talking about. Still, they were, getting to work on a Turtles game was fantastic for me. Like that was another one of those like nerd outs.
Okay, but who's your? I mean, I should ask you guys this in the first place. Who's your Ninja Turtle?
Dude, I can't say that.
Let's hear it.
I can't have that beer.
Who's the
No, everyone has a Ninja Turtle. Like you have to pick.
I don't know if everybody does, man.
No. Everybody does. Not everybody wants to admit it. Everyone does.
Depends on which version, right? But definitely Donatello.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm Raph.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That makes sense. And that totally makes sense.
Yeah, I was always a Leonardo fanboy. If I'm honest, I like the dual wield sword.
Gee, the leader? What? You? That's so.
I'm sorry.
So weird.
Cliches. Yeah.
So bizarre. Yeah. Yeah. So that was fantastic. I even got to write. So when I'm not making games, I'm writing fantasy novels, right? So I love to write stuff. And on Turtles, I got to write some of the dialogue. So working with Nickelodeon, there's an opportunity to do some of the dialogue. Getting to write for the Turtles was great. Loved that. Super good. So that brings us up to kind of today. And I'll just echo some of the stuff that Dan said. Like, only been on the team for 4 weeks. It's been a little bit of a fire hose because you guys know so much. There's so much expertise and so much passion, for not just making a cool game in God Forge, but for the whole genre, right? And so much involvement with the community, and it's been a real fire hose these last 4 weeks, but of the best kind, right? It's
you can call us degenerates. That's fine. We understand. We're not that sad about it.
I'm saving that for later. No, it's been fantastic. It has been overwhelming in a great way and wonderful. and just like Dan was saying, like it's been a super pleasure getting to know everyone on the team, and immersing into it, and joining this incredible effort. It's been really good. It's been a breath of fresh air. It's been fantastic. It's been energizing. Just love it.
Yeah,
Right back at you, man.
for sure. I mean, coming from where we came from this past, I mean, it's night and day. You know,
It's I mean, and we've said this so much times, but like the honest truth is, like it's an honor and it's like a pleasure to be working with you guys. Like the professionalism, the experience, like the psych and the passion.
well, let's see where you're at.
Yeah, well, so far so good. So far so good. We'll check in.
In a year from now.
We still have plenty of opportunities to run it, but you know,
Right, this guy's an asshole. He's always so mean to me. Like,
Oh yeah, trust me, we can put some grenades in there. I'm
but yeah, it's I mean, Joel, it's so great to have you kind of like coming in and whipping stuff into shape and kind of making sure that we're doing things right, because we need to be. This is a big project. This is not like something we can just be like, well, I guess we'll figure it out as we go. It's like we're making sure that we're doing everything right, and yeah, it's been beautiful. But Damon, two things. Number
Hello.
one, you got to answer that question. Who's your Ninja Turtle? And number
I guess
two,
you only left Michelangelo for me.
oh, see, he's not even. You see, he's not a fan.
yeah.
I mean,
There's
I'm like,
more
I
of
don't
them.
know.
I gotta go. This is
Michelangelo, Mikey, he's one of them.
He's one
Okay.
of them, but you said he was the only one left.
he's a party dude, man. I mean, like
Well, I guess the younger version of me really was.
Oh
So,
yeah,
you know,
that makes sense. That
I
makes
was a
sense.
wild and crazy guy.
all right. I do actually feel like you're vibing with Michelangelo. I'm gonna give it to you, but
I think you
let's.
should. I mean, it's probably who I would have picked anyway. In fact, it's who I had in mind. But that being said, like, I was bred on the original comics when it was still pretty nitty gritty, dirty, and they were like these weird, hard to find comics drawn by these two guys.
Yeah, I
And then
didn't
by
even
the
know it
time
was from a comic. If I'm honest, I'm just
It
gonna be
was-
honest. about
Yeah,
that.
and like I was literally like, my shoplifting friends in high school were stealing beers from the corner store and giving me these comics, and we're getting high in their basement, you know. And I'm like, dude, these comics are crazy. They're really cool. And those comics, I mean, they were really bloody and violent,
I gotta look this up.
and like they were cool as shit, man.
Yeah, they were
And
like
then
a
they made these like
Daredevil.
cartoons, and they're like all kind of for kids, and they sort of dumbed it down.
Sure.
And then so I kind of got out of it because I was like, I'm cooler than that.
Yeah, this is
Look.
BS.
That being said, I still would have picked Michelangelo.
Okay, all right.
So,
All right,
yeah.
well, let's hear it. So,
That's-
what's your background, man?
Okay, yeah, no, like Joel, I also kind of started out, and in fact, he and I both worked at Origin, and he and I both worked at Sony, so we had a little overlap in some of those places. I started out at Origin Systems, was my first job in games. Before that, I got an art degree, so I was waiting tables, because that's what you do with an art degree, unless you want to go into teaching art, which isn't really that great an idea. Maybe it's fine. No, it's fine. I don't want to put down our teachers, but
Yeah.
anyway, so I got into, but yeah, in art school, there was a guy who I thought was really smart, because he was like, dude, I took a class in computer graphics, and then I got a job, and I'm making these molecules, animating spheres. And I was like, I want to learn about that. So I took a class, and they were still really early, like it was using the Amiga. Deluxe Paint was new. Then Deluxe Sculpt Animate 4D came out, and it was like, oh, wow, you can
4D, oh.
you can render a reflective sphere in days. Per frame.
Whoa.
Yeah, that was when I started, man. And
4D,
Yeah.
are they like spraying water at you? Is this like a wind
no,
tunnel?
4D, man, you
time?
can put keyframes. You could put
Okay.
a keyframe on it.
All right.
Anyway, so yeah, I started at Origin after that, after I got my, waiting tables chops kind of going. A friend of mine called me up and he said, hey man, I think you would be good at this. You should come. And he worked at a little place called, it's the most forgettable name, but I remember it. Documentation Specialist International Incorporated.
Ow.
Where I was animating machine parts.
Oh, okay.
And then
Makes-
I was
makes
like,
more sense.
I got to get a job in games, because I knew a dude who was like, dude, you should work at Origin. So I got a job at Origin and worked on like,
Wait. Were you before Joel or after Joel?
I
Timeline-wise.
don't know. I started at Origin in '94 and I was there till about 2000.
All time is either BJ or AJ. Before Joel, after Joel.
Before Joel.
that's how we
or after
count it.
Joel?
I don't know. When were you there? Joel, what were you on? What were you working
I
on?
was there a little bit before you. I started
Oh, wow.
in '89.
Oh,
Okay.
wow. It's quite a bit before me then.
Well, he came in QA. He was right. You were saying.
Yeah, as a QA for about a year, and then design. So I was there for the first Wing Commander.
Oh, that's cool, man.
Yeah, we overlapped quite a few years at the end there, though.
Yeah. Yeah, I came on one of the first 3D games.
Okay.
So there were a few 3D games. There was Strike Commander, which was planes. Then there was Wing Commander 1 and 2 were 2D sprite-based. And then Wing 3 was three-dimensional actual polygons. And it was all very new. And I worked on a companion sister game called Wing Commander Armada. And also worked on Wing Commander 3. Worked on a whole list of Wing Commander games. Yeah. And then also worked when I was there on one of the Ultima games. I guess it was Ultima 9. And I got to, in that one, that was cool. I got to animate Bambi. There was a scene where like Lord British, who's the powerful wizard, like standing on the tower, he like blasts the whole planet with like a death spell. It's like basically a giant planetary nuke.
Okay.
So I got to do this scene, there's all these people that go, oh no, and then they die. And then like, and I got to do the scene where Bambi, there's a tree in a forest, and there's Bambi, and he looks up, and this stuff just flies through and burns his flesh off, and the charred bones flying out on the ground. I was like, I was really proud of that. Anyway, let's see. After Origin, I went to also Sony Online, which at the time was called Variant. But then it changed to Sony. Then it went back and forth. Anyway, that was all Star Wars Galaxies. So a group of the Origin folks that I was working with on Privateer Online, not Privateer, but Privateer Online, went and started up an Austin studio to work with and essentially take over the production for Star Wars Galaxies.
We should have brought Dirk on. Like, man, Dirk and I played so much Star Wars Galaxies, so much abuse at Anchorhead. I don't know how much you guys got in there and did the PvP stuff, but I got in there and just danced with my little Twi'lek. I'm sure, man.
I just had like a disco ball, man. That was my whole scene. I was like, I don't want to run around shooting stuff.
No, but so we're the guys on the edge. Like Anchorhead basically had this big. It was like a town that was like up on a hill.
Yeah,
I
remember.
But it was very flat, and so there was an ability that we found that if you shot it, it actually just spread out infinitely.
Oh, that's cool.
Okay,
what was the ability? You remember?
I think it was stopping shot, or was it a stopping shot or knocked? Anyway, it was something that knocked you down. So we would just go to the edge of town, kill everybody, right? We would just like murder the whole town.
Infinite AOE radius or something.
Yeah. It did this, but then it just didn't end. Yeah, it didn't end. So then of course everyone's pissed off and they bring in their whole guild to try to kill. But we had there was the player housing, so we would go in our little player house. And they couldn't come in.
So you were just griefers. You were just bad people.
Oh my god, we would send out the like ATSTs to like go after them. It was beautiful. It was a thing of beauty.
Well, that's kind of cool in a
we didn't do it
naughty
too much
sort of way.
Well, we didn't do it too much, but we did it to the point where I think the devs recognized that this was something that needed to be changed.
They probably fixed the range on stopping shot.
Well, you should have been there when we figured that the devs figured out that Jedis could be killed.
They were not thrilled with that one.
We were like, our lead designer was like, no, this is all going to work. The Jedis can never ever be killed. And then I don't know the
very day or the day
the first
after.
day, yeah,
the first day they were literally murdering Jedis, and they told
I was a bounty hunter. I've killed.
We got to push a patch. We got to fix that.
And it was like, oh, holy shit! Oh my god!
But anyway, to finish out my little backstory, I was at Sony for quite a while. Galaxies, I was a lead artist on a few expansions, the ones that people were mad about mostly. But I was responsible single-handedly for pink Wookiees. That was me, pink and green Wookiees.
That's right.
So I was very proud of that contribution. No, and actually, I did have a lot of cool contributions to the character customization system, which was, I think it was kind of groundbreaking at the time. And of course, there's cooler stuff now. But I went from there to a little company called Space Time Studios, where I worked on a game that got canceled by NCSoft. But that was cool, but it didn't happen. And then I went to Redfly, where Dan was, and then Joel joined, and worked on to me is still one of my favorite games to ever work on was Mushroom Man, which Dan mentioned, where you play a little mushroom dude. I mean, how cool is that? And it was in a super trippy, like, the designer guys who were dreaming this stuff up, and everybody were like, okay, well, like, what if you did take a lot of mushrooms? How would you decorate? Let's make it look like
How would you decorate? Joel, was
like,
this, was this you? Were you the?
That was a little bit pre-Joel, and also, like, it was one of the most amazing things. Chris Taylor, who was the art director and one of the two founders, Dan and T Taylor, we called him T. T plays bass, and he's really good, and he could play like some of the stuff by the band. Primus, wearing my shirt.
Okay, nice.
And he was like, man, if we could get that dude, if we could get Les Claypool, the bass player and singer for Primus, to make music for our game. I mean, it's a crazy dream, but Dan told T, he's like, just call him, just try.
Yeah, why not, right?
So we did, and he's like, he talked to Les Claypool, and he's like, hey, man, would you be interested in making music for our crazy, kind of freaky, trippy Mushroom Man game? And he was like, hell yeah.
Yes, let's go.
And so, he
was
did,
fantastic. Yeah,
the music was really cool. The whole game, like, pulsed to this 120 BPM. And so I made my
120. So this is like a beat. Okay, nice.
That was just like that. And like I made a bunch of visual effects that were like ambient effects, so they would pulse to the beat or like and have little rhythm like sparks and light bulbs and whatever.
And like amazing.
We even had like a system so that combat happened to the beat in subtle little ways, like it was 16th notes and 30-second notes and stuff. So it was so cool. Like, yeah, basically everything got quantized to the beat. It was amazing.
Yeah.
Anyway,
yeah, just real fast, Damon, your backstory keeps getting interrupted, but
that's okay.
Les Claypool, Mike Wilson, who those guys ran Gamecock before it became Devolver, gave us the money to fund Mushroom Man, and they had the connection to Les Claypool, and they arranged for it because we said, like Damon's correct, like, man, this would be great. Like,
we need this.
This, and he's perfect. And at the same time, his son, we showed him and he showed his son, and his son really got into it. So it was a thing that he literally could do with his kids, right? Like the fact that, like, Mushroom Man, a lot of the people at Red Fly during this time period, including myself, we had really small kids, right? And they were just so into the game, which made us into the game, which made everybody into the game. And all of a sudden you've got someone who is, just an unbelievably amazing artist as Les Claypool, talking to you, coming down, visiting the studio, hanging out,
throwing out crazy ideas,
and just like, hey man, do you need more music? I'll just, I'll just get it done.
Let me just jam it down. Yeah, let me just get it done.
I mean, that type of stuff, that never happens. It only happens when you have people that, are artistically inclined and also, are doing something for another interest. Like Mushroom Man would not even have been close to the game that it was if we didn't have the kids that we had during the time.
Yeah. And if we didn't have Les Claypool, if we didn't have the group we had, which we were all like super into it.
Yeah.
And at Les Claypool, after that, he put out an album.
He put out an album.
Mushroom Man. I have the poster. It's freaking cool.
Oh, it's great. He's such an amazing talent. And Chris Taylor built him a bass as well.
He built a bass more accurately. He built a bass that was a perfect copy of the bass that Les Claypool had. And he goes, here, try it. And Les picked it up and he was like, damn, this just feels really good. Sounds great.
Yeah.
So it was the first bass Chris had ever built.
Yeah.
What?
And it was like, here's a master bass player going, oh, this is great.
This is pretty damn good. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's all these things are, I mean, this vibe is why I think, to go back to our point of like when we like why this happened kind of so fast in a sense. I just think that like this is exactly what we're feeling, like this passionate about what we're doing and excited, and so like people are drawn in and they want to like contribute, like with people that are just like, yeah, I'd love to do like I'd love to do like a bust of this character. I'd love to our singer, for example Serena. I mean, she's super psyched, and actually I won't spoil this, but some fun stuff around that's happening around.
Well, I was about to spoil it. I'm glad you said that.
Yes, I caught it. I caught myself because that's not my gig. Simon's not here. You know, Dan's gonna be like, dude,
We got to
and
save
a
some for
two
the
fruit,
marketing materials later.
a
Come on.
two, a two fruit, right? Yeah. But yeah, just like that excitement, man. It's what we live for, man. We're making games. We're having fun. Like it sounds like you guys were having fun, and that's what we're
Oh
here
God,
for.
yeah, no, and I've only gotten up to Mushroom Man. Like, I'll finish myself up real quick though. But like, Mushroom Man was my favorite game. But then also we did some other games that were really cool, and I was doing like face rigging to make for Ghostbusters, which we use that face rig on Ghostbusters and on a bunch of other games. I don't remember what all. Thor. We did Thor for the Wii. That was cool. And I just made this at the time, like it was a challenge from one of our animators who was like, he pulled out this book by this guy. I remember his name, Jason Osipa. He was like, this is the coolest face rig. And he was kind of trying to challenge me. He was like, can you make a rig as cool as this guy's? And I was like, I looked at the book and I was like, I can make you a rig that's better than this guy's.
Yeah.
He was like, no way, dude. I totally did. And it was really good. And I mean, now like there's better rigs out there. There's the what's it called for Unreal? Help me out.
Oh, the
anyway, there's the metahuman rig. It's definitely better than, but mine was really good then. Anyway,
all that stuff, yeah.
So I was doing cool tech art for Redfly, and then jumped around, but ended up a few other different places. I've made Shroud of the Avatar, which was another Richard Gere game, which kind of crashed and burned a little bit, you could say, but it's still there. There's still a few thousand people playing that thing.
Probably religiously,
and,
right? Yeah.
And this is an MMO where, it didn't make the revenue it needed, so it collapsed down again. But they just kept me around because I'm a generalist and could do all the different things. So then I was the art team for an MMO, which is kind of crazy.
The art team for an MMO.
I was the art team. I mean, I had an outsourcer or two. I would occasionally, and of course we bought assets off the asset store, but you have to customize those. But anyway, but then I ended up working with Dan again a little bit later at Arctic 7 on that game. Was so cool, Dawn of Fire. I won't talk a bunch about that, but I was a tech art lead on that one. And anyway, now I'm here.
What I would ask each of you guys is like, what was the most fun you guys had on a single project? So it sounds like maybe Man Mushroom, but maybe I'm wrong. But
Mushroom Man was a big cool one.
Or Mushroom Man, sorry. What would be number one for you guys? Like fondest memory of working on a game, and maybe why?
I can start. It's Mushroom Man for me. It was the first game that we, I came up with the idea. We pitched it to a group. They gave us,
How long did it take, by the way?
To make the game?
Yeah.
It took about 2 years.
Okay.
And I mean, we pitched it to Gamecock, Harry Miller and Mike Wilson, and they gave us millions of dollars to make the game. I mean, I would not have been able to set up Redfly at all without that. And we literally started production on that game and built a team, and it was the funnest game I've ever worked on because one, you always like to work on your own stuff. I mean, but it was so creative and so out there, and Frank Turan was our concept artist, and he's an absolute lunatic, in the best way. And it was just everybody you could show somebody a couple concepts from the idea and they'd be like, oh my God, that's, they get it. You get it. You understand. But for me, but it also, again, it was important for multiple reasons. It started our studio. It was a way for me to bond with my kids. We had a lot of fun making the game. I mean, it was definitely hard. It was hard because we had never started a studio before, and now all of a sudden we had to become a double A. We're no longer. It's not an independent studio. It's more like a double A studio. Back then, I wouldn't call it a double A studio now, but
at the time for the Wii, it sure as heck was. I mean, it looked really good for the Wii.
And there was a a middle class where back then where you could get $2 to $3 to $4 to $5 million and you could make Wii games and PS2 games, and the publisher made money, and you made some money, and it was great. And at one time, Redfly was the highest rated third-party Metacritic game studio in the world.
No shit.
Well,
okay, I didn't know
and
that.
so much so that like when we made stuff, we made the Star Wars The Force Unleashed 2 for the Wii. They liked it enough at LucasArts that LucasArts said, we want everybody to do stuff the way you do it. In fact, we want to acquire you. Yeah. But they didn't say we're about to be bought by Disney and the whole thing's going to explode.
Surprise!
All right. To be fair, Damon, they didn't know that.
That's probably why they didn't say it.
That's probably why they didn't say it. But yeah, for me, I think hands down, Mushroom Men, for multiple reasons. And we still, even to this day, talk about, man, we'd love to make another game like that. But yeah, for me, it's Mushroom.
The psychedelic, yeah. I mean, it sounds awesome. Like you had me sold at like the descriptions, like to the beat. I'm guessing.
Oh man, just platformer. It was a platformer and like light combat, kind of Mario style light combat game, but it had some really cool like movement paradigms. So for example, you didn't just run and jump, which you did, and you could swing your little weapon around. There were some special weapons like you could make. See, part of the game that was fun is you could. I'll get back to that. Well, no. You can make weapons as a little mushroom man who's 2 inches tall. You can make weapons out of like matchsticks and paper clips and tape and shit. And like you could make a flamethrower.
Okay.
It was so cool. And it's like you're crafting these little weapons. But anyway, you also had some cool movement paradigms. Like you had a thing. I don't know if you guys remember this toy from, I don't know if it was from the 80s. There was a toy called Sticky Hand. And it's just like this sticky...
Just like a little...
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
It's like a hand and it's like
thing. Yeah, you stick it to the refrigerator or whatever. And you could use this to move around. It was basically like a little...
so you got like a
stretchy grappling hook. So you could like throw it...
That's right. That was our grappling hook.
And that made... And so it's...
Dude, the kids would love this. I can see what you mean.
Cool, man. And so you had this 3D platformer, which of course has its own like player direction challenges. People were getting lost, so we had to put arrows everywhere, but that's okay. And you're moving around, and then somebody had a cool idea, and it was a combination of people's ideas, and I may have been part of this idea, where it was like, well, let's not show the hit point bar the standard way. Let's just give our little character, whose name was Pax, for whatever reason. It's a good name. Let's give the top of his head, which you see all the time as you're running around, is flopping around. Let's make that represent his hit points, and as you will give him 5 or 7 hit points, and as you see him run around, he will lose chunks of his cap off his head. And then
deteriorating.
Down to nothing, then you die. And of course, you resurrect. It's like death isn't that punishing, but anyway, it's cool stuff like that.
Okay, and what about you, Joel? What's your favorite experience of something to work on?
Well, I mean, so I came to Redfly after Mushroom Man. I got to work on a platform we did later on the same IP. So, I have a little bit of stories to do with that, but that wasn't it for me. I wish I had been there. Sounds like you guys were saying.
You're hearing it, you're like,
that's really good. So for me, it was, again, going back early, it was Privateer. And that kind of came about back in the day before Origin was acquired by Electronic Arts. They had a very strange system of making games where basically they would bring in-house folks that had their own ideas and then would support them to be like, hey, we can provide artists and programmers and things like that, but it's your game.
So like a little indie publisher internal.
Yeah, and then they would publish it. So like, Chris Roberts came in, and he was working on a game called Times of Lore, which was a top-down role-playing game. And then in his office, he, as you went by, and this was when I was in QA, we were testing it. You go by his office, and there were spaceships shooting the hell out of each other. You're like, oh, come on, man! And so
let me in. What's going on?
Exactly. So all like
guys, I'm sorry to interrupt. I gotta run. I just got a voicemail. My mom has been sent to the hospital, so I gotta run.
Oh man, yeah, dude, do your thing. Thanks for coming. Welcome to the team. But yeah,
thanks.
Take your.
Yep.
Sorry, I gotta jump.
See you, Damon.
See you, man. Hope everything's
yeah. So he was working on Wing Commander. Everyone was excited about it. Everyone wanted to make it. So the Origin folks said, let's do this. So we made that game. That was super fun. And then can't remember who it was. Someone at Origin said, let's make a game called Trade Commander, where basically, you're it's set in the same universe, and you're trying to build a business and make money by sending goods back and forth. And Chris kind of came to me one day and we were talking about it, and he said, like, that's a terrible idea. We don't want to make marketing Commander. That sounds terrible. But what can we do with this?
That's a terrible idea.
Right. So, but what can we do with this? And I kind of and so we chatted a little bit, and he said, "Well, look, go off and see what you can design, and if we like it, we can go make it." And of course, a lot of people have said, like, "Hey, Wing Commander is you get to play Luke Skywalker." So we're like, but everyone wants to be Han Solo. So what would this world be like if you were Han Solo? So we kind of designed a game around that, where you're just out there, you're in, a piece of crap ship that you're holding together with duct tape, but you're trying to make the Kessel Run or whatever, right? And so
it's Cowboy Bebop, the game.
Yeah, this was before Elite Dangerous. It was before, it's kind of idea that you could just go anywhere you wanted and do anything you could. So we just kind of designed it out, and then we were like, let's just make that. And it was a very strange experience because we were so sheltered, and we could just kind of do whatever we wanted, and it was our job to get people excited about it. But until before we actually moved it over, we were just kind of on our own. So similar to what Dan's describing, and very similar to what is kind of the experience right now, right, at Fateless. It's like, okay, like, this is super dear to our hearts. We're making our decisions on what's the most important stuff, right, as gamers and designers and lovers of the game, right, and not just because it's the third sequel in a series or whatever, right, that needs one new feature. And it somehow, and I don't know how, but it lasted throughout until we shipped the game. Like, we just kept making stuff and being like, this is cool, and this is cool, and this is cool. And yes, we want to be able to fly wherever we want to. And yes, we want to be able to take on missions. And yes, I want to put turrets on my ship. And so it was
the first time feature creep worked out.
It was vision driven, Dan.
Vision driven. That's such a good way to put it. Yeah.
At all.
Vision creep. Yeah.
But that is amazing when you get to, like, when that payoff comes, right? When it's like actually this is the thing that I dreamt about and I thought was going to happen, and it sounds like you guys have had that kind of that experience, like.
That's right, and it was really good because it was a single player MMO basically, right? Like, you could go. It was open world when there wasn't really such a thing,
right.
And especially not in space, right? Like, everything was mission based. Everything was TIE fighter, X-Wing versus TIE fighter, stuff like that. And so you get to design everything, the story behind every place you go to, what you're trading, the missions that you're going on, the different factions that were out there getting angry at you for shooting down their ships, being pirates, stealing people, blowing people up and stealing their stuff. It was super open, and just for me, it was the type of game that I wanted to play. So I think there was a lot of that in there too that came to fruition, and we just knocked it out. And I was like, oh, that was super cool. It did okay as well. Got a lot of good critiques, but I can remember it was it's the game that when I'm at a convention or whatever, still to this day, folks that you just bump into on a bus or whatever, and you get to talking about what you've done over your career. It's the game people go, oh yeah, man, I love that game.
Yeah.
Right. And it just reminds you, it's like, why are we making these games?
Yeah.
To entertain folks, right? So that they they end their day and they're like, I want to play that and I feel good and I'm having a great time and I laughed, I cried, like whatever it was. Um, it brings home the point, right? Over and over again. It's just like, yeah, we're
This is
entertaining
fun.
people.
We're
making
doing we're
people
doing
happy.
fun stuff. Yeah, we're making people happy. We're doing exactly. And
It's so
that's
cool.
man, it's just so amazing to have you guys kind of like on and with kind of like that as your perspective. You know what I mean? And I'm sure you know, I imagine working for quote unquote the big boys. I imagine that maybe that wasn't always, maybe not every single place you've been at was able to kind of like drive
No, it's super tough in
vision
some
based.
places.
What do we call it?
Vision. I just made that up. I think I need to TM it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we the thing with being in the industry for as long as we have been, you know, we've worked at great places like Sony Online and Star Wars Galaxies was one of the best jobs I've ever had. You know,
Yeah.
I had so many good people. We did an amazing thing with Star Wars Galaxies. Like, if you know, I know we talk about how to customize characters, you know, for this game. If you knew the level of tech and just brute force and duct tape that our character customization that we built, I mean, it would just drive you insane. But we met so many really amazing people, and you know, there are projects that you know you work on in the larger companies that you know they're a bit of a grindhouse, right? And then you know there are examples of in my experience, independent game companies with the wrong leadership, with you know only interested in money, not interested in, which I have some experience with, not interested in the games themselves, and without fail, those guys fall into ruin in less than 2 years, right? Because you have to want to make something great, and if you're chasing the dollars, which obviously you know we're all adults here and we all have kids that we want to keep in braces, and money is important. But you know, when you're really passionate about a game, and you do your best, you know, there's a good chance it will be successful. If you're not passionate about a game and you don't do your best, the chances that game is going to be terrible and not be as successful is pretty high. So, you know, we've been fortunate, especially at Redfly, we had a really high passion for the things that we were doing, and we lasted about 15 years. And, you know, I would be in conversations with publishers who would want to replicate our work culture, or, you know, hey, how do you guys have that passion, that stuff you're talking about? And it's like, well, you have to, I mean, you can't it's not something you manufacture. You have
it's just like, all right, guys, today we're working on passion.
right.
Make sure you have it.
Right. I mean, you know, you have to give a shit, and we all risk and work really hard and extra for things we care about. And you know, one of the things that we're finding in this industry is, you know, we can be taken advantage of for our passions, right? By the guys who just are interested in money. They're just like, oh, those guys will work themselves to death, and they're right. We will. But you know, when you're a studio like yourself, when you control that, it's a completely different story, and you can really, you know, like it's just been great dealing with you guys. We come up with ideas, and you quickly decide, like, oh, that's a good idea, let's move on it. And you know, if we were in a bigger studio or whatever, it'd be a whole chore. So I mean, there's multiple ways to ship titles, and the best way to ship a title that everybody can be proud of is to be passionate about it.
Yeah, it's crazy to hear you say that, because probably like 3 months ago, I basically said the same thing verbatim in one of our podcast episodes. I was talking with like Sham and Simon, and I was like, what these people are learning, these suits, these business people are learning, is you can't just be like Amazon and say, here's $300 million, make me an MMO. Like, you can't throw money at it. You have to have the authenticity, the actual passion in the room, or you can spend $500 million. It's not going to matter. You have to have that element of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it's important. And to be clear, plenty of people have been passionate about games and it not be successful.
It can't just be passion. Yeah.
Right. But I mean, like I remember having conversations with people, publishers trying to get new jobs, and they would say things like, well, hey, that Thor port you did on the Wii was a Metacritic 68 or something like that. And I would be like, really? Let's walk through that. Everybody doesn't even, the people who want to review those games don't want to review Wii games. So you're already working, maybe you're lucky even to get an 80, right? You're lucky to even get an 80. And then
they're pissed off. They're like,
right. And then I explained to them the budget, right? Okay, it was very low. And then I explained to them how much Sega interfered all the time. And then we outperformed the 360 and the PlayStation, right? Metacritic and even in sales. Not that was great, because those titles were really bad. But I was like, I will wear my button 68 Thor all day long, because we were passionate about it. We gave a shit. If you go back and play that game now, it's a completely different style, completely different game. You can see the passion in it. And, we lasted 15 years. There's plenty of other places that last longer, but it was a real testament. And, I would be in conversations with people like, well, how did you last that long? We would have never lasted that long if it was just about money. It had to be about the passion, because we would get new deals with new publishers because they were like, we can see that you're passionate about this game, and that's what we want. So it always, it's hard, and it doesn't always work out, but it's always the best strategy for when you're doing anything creative is to give a shit about.
Yeah. And this is the thing, like, it's like we have that, I think we have that secret sauce, that combination now. We have a bunch of people, you guys out there are super psyched about what we're all building together. We have the kind of the expertise in the genre and all that stuff. And now we've got, I feel like now we have in-house, we've got these amazing people that have, you guys really, what I heard was, I've worked at all the big companies or lots of the big companies. I've done big games, I've done small games, I've worked indie, I've worked with it's like, I'm like, hey, I've got a question about this. You guys are like, oh yeah, it's I did this 14 other times, and here's I'm like, shit, yeah. Okay, well there we go.
Yep.
It's fantastic. Yeah, it's everything's okay with your mom.
Yeah,
Damon?
I'm back. That was a snafu. It was a silly misunderstanding. I got a call, got a voicemail, and then the transcription I saw was the one from 2 weeks ago that said, bad things happen. Okay, I've deleted that fucking voicemail transcription. Now I'm not gonna make that mistake.
But like, oh, just glad everything's okay. No, yeah, that's
everything's
great.
fine. Everything's fine. Mom's fine. She's just old.
Well, I did want to respect everyone's time. I did want to ask, because I want to make sure we get this question in. Brad, I'm going to let you ask as usual. Important question. 2 important questions. Or I guess one major important question. Go ahead. Get in there.
Yeah, so obviously you guys are here in the crew. The gist of our game. So one thing we usually ask our podcast guests, and we'll forward the same privilege to you guys, is if you had input of like, this is my jam, I want this person to be a hero in the game, what would be each of your answers? And some of the main ones we've had are like William Wallace from Braveheart, or like Robin Hood, for example.
Robin Hood, like, is a really big
popular one. So do any of you, we can start with whoever's ready, if any of you have one, because usually we like to go off the top of the head and get like your gut reaction on who you think would be super cool and make sense in our universe, and kind of doesn't have to be a god, it can be a myth, a legend, anything from any culture.
That is an interesting question.
Yeah, it's an important one.
Oh, well, Cthulhu doesn't work. Let's see.
Cthulhu, that's what, what? I was going to say something like,
By the way, Cthulhu does
there's,
work.
Of course, there's a few different Cthulhu gods.
I know, but
it can be a creature.
There's a list of them. We could probably use all of them or some of them, but Cthulhu himself is like, planet size, so it seems like a bad idea.
Well, for me, I got to go back to Michael Moorcock, right? Like when you look at Elric. And Stormbringer and the other chaos gods.
And what was Elric's brother's name?
Oh,
The
prince.
Yeah, the other one.
Yeah.
There's Stormbringer and Mournblade. He had Mournblade for a while.
Right. And then, Ariok, Souls for My Lord Ariok, like that kind of stuff. When I was, whenever I first read those books, 13 or whatever, it was
Ariok.
Souls for My Lord Ariok, right?
Well, maybe he should be in the game.
You want to collab? You guys are basking in the collabs. You want this? Okay, I'm down.
It was the heavy metal of fantasy, right?
Of
like
chaos,
it was just
man.
like so awesome. You're like, oh God, yes.
Well,
Kill everybody. Yes, kill yourself. That's amazing. When's the next book coming out?
Oh, just as a side note, speaking of Michael Moorcock, I got to work on a Michael Moorcock game at Origin. I don't know if you remember that one, Joel.
No.
Yeah, there was a game called Silverheart, which we got Moorcock to actually write for it. He ended up writing a whole novel with these characters.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah, this game was Silverheart. We got all these cool concepts by a really famous Italian concept artist whose name I can't think of right now. And we also got we got Sid Mead to do some concepts for Wing Commander Prophecy, but we were getting this other Italian guy who was so good. Anyway, but Moorcock, I actually got to meet Michael Moorcock because we were working on that game.
Wow. Okay. Well, so when we call him up for the collab, we got the connection. We're ready. We're ready to go. It's happening.
Yep. Got him to sign my books.
Nice. Well, so Dan, what do you got? This is.
Oh, I can I say Pumpkinhead? Is that okay?
Oh, sure. That's fine.
Sure.
Whenever,
I love it, man.
I mean, we I'm sure the rights aren't that expensive, so we can just.
Well, it's more. So I think the way we would always be pitching it if we were going to do a collab is less like, hey, let's get the rights, and more like, hey, we want. I mean, well, I guess for Pumpkinhead it's probably different. But
I'm just kidding. But I mean, any monster. I'm just such a monster guy. I mean,
you got to show you got to show off your model. Do you have it before we go?
Oh, yeah, I do.
You got to show it off.
Okay. Well, it's back here.
While he's doing that, I'll say, what about Eris? It's a Greek goddess. She's probably not in there, right?
Okay.
She's the goddess.
Well, listen, we can't confirm or deny any of these.
Yeah, we can't.
We might have Mushroom Men.
She's a goddess of chaos, but she's also like
here.
Oh yeah, there you go. That's cool.
Yeah.
I mean, I made a bloater. Not that it keeps getting blurred out.
Yeah, because
you have
the
like a
filter
zoom
is
effect.
doing its thing. Yeah, but
yeah, you'll have to hide your
It's
face
so
behind
sick.
it.
But so I live in this hovel, and this is my office. It's actually under my house. It's not really an office. It's if you came in here, you'd be like, "What are you doing in here?"
I know. I've seen that room. It's exactly.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. There's the AC units right there, and then my 3D printers are over here. And I mean, I have to have the 3D printers over here because it has resin fumes, and it can't be in the house. But also, it's not great for me either. But what do you? Let's talk about passion if we want.
You got to suffer for your art, man.
Yeah, you got to suffer for your art.
That's right. That's right. Okay.
But yeah,
this has been, dude. It's been an absolute pleasure. Like going over this stuff. We'll get you guys. We'll have to get you guys on once we once we've kind of gone through and gone a little bit further in the project, and we can decide if you guys still think that we're cool or we're all assholes. Who knows? We'll figure it out, right?
Right.
But no, I mean, seriously, it's just such a pleasure to have you guys work on the project, and yeah, it was amazing to have you guys on the podcast and just hear some of the war stories, man. I'm super psyched to.
That's 1/10 of the war story.
Yeah, oh yeah.
I know. Well, this is all I can do. This is the time we have. We'll take some of it offline,
We'll
but
we be around. We could do another podcast in a month,
yeah,
3 or
if you
5
guys
or
if
whatever.
you guys are loving this on the podcast, then let us know in the comments if you want to. If we should do more of these, if we should hear some war stories of different games. If there's a game you guys loved,
sure.
Let us know. But
we know plenty of dirt, so.
That's right.
Now
Yeah,
you're
you guys
talking.
want some dirt.
Now you're talking. This is
you guys want to do the dirt? Then let's.
Let us know. Let us know in the comments. The more comments we get, the more chance we're gonna have. We're gonna have some dirty dirt that we can.
Oh yeah, I'm Storm Dirt. Lucas Dirt.
What do you guys want? You just let us know.
Whatever dirt you want.
Yeah, no, some of the story about you meeting Lucas.
Oh yeah,
I know.
Great.
We didn't get to talk too much about that, but
all right, that's for the next one. That's for the next
there were
one.
some nice
I haven't heard
details
this.
there. You should circle back to that at some point.
Okay.
It's all funny and also
it's funny but also cringy. It's kind of like
yeah.
You ever watch that show White Lotus or one of those cringy comedies where you're just like, oh god, what are they gonna do? Ha ha ha! Nervous laugh. Ha ha.
Or like the English Office, dude.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
Oh.
It's It's a little like that.
Yeah. Okay, like that. All right. Well, so
Yeah.
if you guys are looking for some English office dramedy, let us know. Brad, take us out.
Cool. Yeah, thanks for joining us on this episode of the Fateless podcast. Massive shout out to Damon, Joel, and Dan. We're excited to have them on the team. And we would love to hear what you have to say. We always appreciate your input down in the comment section and places like Discord. We'll have all the links down below for you to make your voices heard on what you would like to see for the direction of the game and all that good stuff. So we will catch you soon in the next episode. Cheers.